Hello, Yessa. We're just starting the presentation.
Okay, so we can start now. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to another session of the Cambridge Zero Climate Change Festival organized by the University of Cambridge. This session is going to focus on the first ever co-housing community in Cambridge at Marmalade Lane. And of course, the theme of the session is centered around sustainability. My name is Tahawar Hussain. I am an energy and sustainability professional and also a new resident here at Marmalade Lane. And I'm joined by Francis Wright, who's been involved with this project since 2015 and has been living at this co-housing community for the past 2 years. She now works with the developer town. On the screen, you can also see our email addresses. So please feel welcome to stay in touch regarding any questions you may have following the presentation. And also you can see a snapshot of a few members of the community and the vision that drove the establishment of this co-housing community and its functioning today and beyond. So we will begin with the presentation, and following the presentation, we will try to accommodate as much questions as we can. So please do enter your questions, if any, in the chat. With this, I would now request Francis to take us through.
Certainly. If you go to the next slide, this is Marmalade Lane. And so it's in Orchard Park in Cambridge. And so what you can see is actually on the southern border is the guided busway. And then there's a green development plot that hasn't yet been built on at the top of the picture. And then it's the A14. So it really is in that slither of land sandwiched between the two. And I think it's got 42 homes in it, half apartments, half houses. And along the top, you can see 2 terraces, and that's actually Marmalade Lane running along the top. And then you can see the car park to the side. And there's a sort of slightly odd building facing the garden. That's our common house, which is a shared building. And then you can see the large shared garden at the back. And co-housing communities are intentional communities where residents intend to live in a more neighbourly way. And they're normally designed with the future residents, and they go on to be managed by the residents. And that the principles of the design are really all about how to encourage social interaction. And so though everybody has their own private home or apartment with a sort of outdoor space, whether that's a reasonably sized balcony or fairly small gardens, the emphasis is on shared space, both internal and external. And this shared internal space is seen as an extension of your own home. There are guest bedrooms, so you don't need extra bedrooms. There's a laundry, so you don't need to have your own washing machine. There's a lounge, dining space, kitchen. So you can sort of expand into that space when it helps you, but also as a space to spend time together. And there's an equivalent of sharing a garage. So we have a big shared storage space, but also a small gym and a small workshop with shared tools in. Co-housing communities aren't like kibbutz. There's no shared economy, but there's often shared values, and very often that value is around sustainability. And in a co-housing context, if I can move on a slide, sustainability is seen in that broader context, and the sort of idea of collective, sort of stronger communities being really fundamental to both sustainability for us as humans, but also for a planetary level is quite critical. So I'm going to tell you about how this co-housing community came about, because it's quite unusual. And then we're going to, Tahawar is then going to talk about the houses themselves, and then we're going to come back and talk about what it's like to live here and connect that back up to sustainability. So in this context, I just wanted to focus on. This was a development plot that was owned by Cambridge City Council. And when the financial crash came in 2009, the mainstream developers for this site walked away. It was all designated for market sale. They abandoned the contract. The council decided to do something innovative. They'd just been to Germany, to Freiburg, and had seen a sort of very large group self-custom build cooperative housing in action, much higher levels of sustainability. So for this site, they wanted both the money from the sale of the land for market sale property, but also they wanted some added value, which was about the quality of the homes, the higher sustainability standards, and stronger community. And so they kind of went out and found a group of individuals who were interested in living in a different way, and they developed a brief for the site. That brief was then used in a tendering process to find a developer. And so Town and Tristlehurst became the developers, and Cambridge-based architects, Mole Architects, became the architects. And so the project really gets, at that point, 2015, developers appointed, local building contractors. Colson's took on the building, and it was completed by December 2018. But it was, the context to this was really that it is possible for local authorities to do something more with land that they own. So if we move on to the next slide. I think I wanted to emphasize here just the importance of being able to procure for social value, and it isn't done very much, but these are some values that have been put on some really simple things, like I talk to my neighbours regularly. This has a measurable social good, feeling a sense of belonging. All of these things, I feel in control of my life, is massive in terms of the social value. And so the way we do housing can contribute to this. I think that's it on that slide. Over to you.
Thank you, Frances. So we move on to the technical design and energy considerations when Cambridge Co-housing Community was being designed. So instead of going for certain green ornaments from the get-go, the group considered...
I've just remembered we're supposed to be recording. Are we recording?
We are recording, yes.
Good, excellent. Sorry.
Yeah, so the group decided that it was more important and rather more appropriate to embed certain features within the design that pertain to energy consumption and energy efficiency. So for this purpose, when it came to selection of the building fabric, the developer Tristlehurst, who had already an experience of working in Sweden, serving their clients under various extreme climate conditions. So they have this pattern technology called Climate Shield for the building fabric. And this was selected as the design for the community. Main features being that it has a very thick woolen insulation of about 240 millimeters, argon-filled triple glazed windows, and then all this can be done factory fitted offsite and then brought on site for final assembly. So since it's done at the factory, at that stage, it allows for precision engineering. And what we get as a product is a very airtight building, which of course gives rise to ventilation issues, which we would cover further down the presentation. So once such a fabric is in place, then the estimated U value of the building, including roofs, windows, and walls, is around 0.18. Just to give you a reference, for passive house buildings standards, that U value is 0.1, whereas the building regulations, they allow for a value of 0.2 to 0.3, depending upon the surface. Another thing that was taken into consideration, and of course, which was a very important one, was the issue of affordability. So while the project was being designed, the group wished to have it designed according to the passive house standards, but they soon found out that it would not be affordable. So the so-called sweet spot was reached at 70% of passive house standard, based upon the energy requirements of space heating as well as water heating demand. And uh, the building was thus designed at 70% of the passive house standard using the climate sheet technology, uh, which, if had it been designed at 100% as per the passive house standard, would probably have resulted in properties being 15% costlier. So to address ventilation issues, as you're all aware that ventilating a property through natural draft or by opening windows and doors, that is a very inefficient and costly method of doing so. So in order to avoid any heat losses, mechanical ventilation and heat recovery systems have been installed to all the properties, whereby the warm air is extracted and is taken to a heat exchanger where it is mixed with the incoming fresh air. And then the preheated fresh air is provided through ducts to the property, and the warm air that is mixed with the uh, incoming fresh air is rejected to the atmosphere. There's also a default bypass setting for the summer, so that during the summers, the incoming fresh air does not meet with the warm extracted air, so as to keep the temperature or the atmosphere of the building to a pleasant level. There are booster settings available, of course, with this system. So when required, for example, while doing cooking or to remove moisture, those booster settings can be applied. The system works at about 80% efficiency and also works without any noise. The the heating needs are being met through the electricity-driven air source heat pumps. So these pumps are utilized for meeting not only the space heating requirements, but also the water heating requirements. Since the heating level is lower than that of oil and gas-based boilers, so they make it a very useful method of heating the underfloors, which all the ground floors of these properties have. They've been equipped with underfloor heating, and heating at the first floor and the second floor, that is done through radiators. So these air source heat pumps have a service life of 20 years. Moving on to further eco features of these buildings. So the way that they have been designed in terms of their layout, they were mostly south, east, and west facing to maximize solar gain, as well as to allow sunlight to come in so as to reduce the lighting requirements. Windows, fairly large windows have been fitted. Then the water use fittings are those that allow for low water use. The properties had been designed according to lifetime home standards wherever it was possible and practical. And of course, it comes to individual choices as well, but most of the homes, especially the larger ones, they have kept these design element within their properties so as to adjust with time whenever required. These homes have been built with level 4 code of sustainable homes, and a few of the properties have also added solar panels individually, and there is also a proposal for converting the common house onto solar panels along with storage. So this option is currently being researched. So I now move you to Francis, over to Francis.
Yes, so this is really just to pick back up this, what I think the community context adds in terms of sustainability. I think knowing your neighbour and having some shared space and shared, it makes a whole load of other things much easier. So one of the first priorities was to build a large shared compost bin. Not everybody is successful at managing compost, but collectively there are enough people who are good at it for us to produce a reasonably large quantity between us. And that's really supported an allotment garden where those people with the skills and the interests have been growing vegetables since we moved in. And they're used to support the shared meals. And the other thing that I think has been really valuable is through getting to know your neighbours. Has meant that we haven't had to go out and buy much to equip and furnish all these shared areas, as people have moved in and they've downsized, or they've moved into houses where the furniture doesn't fit. There's been a big churn of furniture and equipment that have found its way both into each other's houses, but into these shared areas, and it has facilitated a lot of this sort of borrowing and recycling of items. We also now share our food orders to try and reduce the transportation involved with deliveries and so forth. So they're coming in one go more often than not. And we also have started a shared electric car and some car sharing and lift sharing. That's all done using Google Calendars, but there's now 2 cars in that pool. And they're shared by 15 households. And it's not that they're their only car, it is for some, but for others, it gives them access to an electric car, which they can use for short journeys. So I think we're going to keep on the theme of cars. So I'm going to hand back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an aerial view, a schematic view of the co-housing community. And this area right here where I'm pointing, surrounded by this blue border, that is the car parking area. So it may be a few steps away from the individual properties, but in this way, it allows us not only a lot of flexibility in terms of utilizing the space that is available in the form of a shared garden, which you see here. Then there are large bin areas that are shared, which are again, the community members themselves. They take the bins out, and the refuse trucks, they do not have to come onto property, which allows us to have an entirely traffic-free lane code, which is christened the Marmalade Lane, which you can see here. So walking to your car instead of having your car parked right next to your property or to an adjacent or adjoining garage, it's a trade-off which I think that all the community members are happy to make. So this is another photograph of the Marmalade Lane. You can see how safe and secure it is in terms of families and children gathering and playing outside. And during the sunny days, it's usually bustling with children playing carefree on the street outside, which is again a relief for the parents and communities on the whole as well. So some experiences of co-housing living, as you can see in this picture, shared community meals. There's a mural which is painted by various community members who are free to do so, who have artistic inclinations. Then, of course, there are hens that are being kept, hedgehogs. Francis can shed more light on it.
Yeah, should I take over on hedgehogs? I think one of the things I've found for myself living in the community has been how easy it is for people to pursue an interest or a hobby and find other people will get involved, support them practically, who are interested in learning new skills, or just really enjoy that opportunity for a sort of shared work endeavour. So some of these pictures are things where it's somebody who has really wanted to do something and then has found followers. And here are a couple of examples in that territory. So one is we do a monthly rubbish ramble. It's become quite a well-supported thing within the community. We go around Orchard Park and collect the litter. And here is a community event we organised for a Saturday and Sunday morning. People from outside of Marmalade Lane in the locality came and helped clear up this footpath, Mere Way, which was a really lovely activity to do. I think everybody had a great time. We collected a really surprising amount of rubbish there. but it was quite easy to do. It just took one person who said, this is really rubbish, let's go and tidy it up. And we had probably 20, 25 people out for a couple of hours on that Saturday and Sunday, and made a real difference. And I think the other thing that is probably, I've got a couple of images here, but it's really just around, in some ways, living in community during COVID has been, we probably have taken for granted what it has offered, because we knew all of our neighbours, a lot of support was there readily. So I suspect we just took those for granted, and it has been hard to adapt to being less social when the whole community is designed to facilitate sociability. But what we have done in response, and I think the sort of flexibility of the site has lent itself to that, is we have just adapted to living outside. So Marmalade Lane now has a sort of more of a piazza feeling at one end of it. We've made some tables and chairs to occupy it. We've eaten some of our community meals outside, and we've created what is sort of called the Snug, which is just by the front door. It's slightly sheltered from the rain, not from the Cambridge wind, but it is a place where you can meet someone and feel relatively safe. And these are a couple more images in that line, because one of the things we developed during COVID was an internal shop, really to just reduce the sort of journeys that people were taking. And it's proved immensely popular and had doubled in size in that period of time. And this large indoor space, the common house, which isn't really being used for community activities anymore, has become a place for people to work from home, mainly for working from home. So it's one of my colleagues there in that picture. So it's been around how we adapt our spaces to the circumstances. And again, in the context of sustainability and thinking about resilience, that's quite an important factor, to be able to have some space that somehow you collectively own and can shape as your needs and interests change. So I'm handing back now.
Thank you, Frances. So this is the last slide of the presentation, considering we only have 5 minutes left in the session. So I'll try to be as brief as possible, but it's a very important slide, given that it deals with my thoughts being a new resident at Marmalade Lane. So a few months ago, when we started living for a new place at Cambridge, one of the key considerations during that search was, of course, that of sustainability. But with the issue of sustainability also comes the issue of affordability, because many of the new schemes that have been popping up across the area that claim to be sustainable, they are not very affordable. So coming across the Cambridge co-housing community in that sense was a blessing in disguise, because given my profession as well as lifestyle choices, it felt closer to home. Another thing that attracted us to the Cambridge co-housing community was that with respect to Eastern cultures, the concept is a throwback to a past tradition and lifestyle, which even sadly in our Eastern cultures is no longer in vogue because of the large population boom and the trend for urbanization. But as Frances alluded to earlier in the presentation, this sort of concept of community living is an important element if we talk about sustaining the concept of sustainability, if I may say so. The issue of safety has already been discussed earlier. Another advantage that we feel here is that of diversity, people of diverse backgrounds, cultures, and if I'm not wrong, Frances, we have people of over a dozen nationalities living here currently. So this opens up to whole new ways of thinking, ideas, exposes you to various new cultures and ways of doing things, and also really helps when it comes to problem solving. Sharing of resources, Frances has described very eloquently in the previous slide, so I won't waste time on that, given the paucity of time we have. But the important element here, I guess, is that of emotional ownership, because it's now not just limited to an individual. It's now permeating to an entire community, which is a very important thing if we want to sustain such initiatives. And in closing, I guess one of my biggest observations being a sustainability professional is that oftentimes during the sustainability dialogue, we tend to ignore the social component. This element is more often overshadowed or takes a backseat by the climate debate. And having avenues like Cambridge Co-housing Community and such a model being replicated all across the UK and hopefully around the world, that would also support in bringing to the forefront the most important element, the social component of sustainability, because without amply addressing it, there can never be true sustainability. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. We only have a couple of minutes left. So if you have any questions, please feel free to, this is your opportunity now. Otherwise, you have our email addresses shared earlier during the presentation, and we would be available, of course, to answer any questions that you may have.
Sally, go for it.
Just wanted to say what a really good presentation it was. And I can think of a lot of people this would have been very relevant to who aren't here today. So I just hope you managed to promote your experiences to a much wider group. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I'll share that. I thought it was a really interesting presentation. And though I was vaguely aware of Marmalade Lane, I didn't know any details. So it was really fascinating to listen to.
Brilliant. Well, if you ever fancy visiting, just send us an email via our website.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
It appears so. So we are all out of time anyway. So thank you
Yes.
for your
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.